74,000 years ago, you are alive. You don't know it yet, but in a few days, the sky is going to turn the wrong color, and then it is going to stay that way for years. This is the story of the closest humans have ever come to vanishing completely. Not from a war, not from a disease, from a mountain. To understand what happened, you need to understand what a supervolcano is, because it is not a volcano in the way you're imagining. A regular volcano is a mountain that erupts. Dramatic, sure, but manageable. A supervolcano is something else entirely. It is a crack in the earth so large, so deep, that when it goes, it doesn't just throw rock into the air. It collapses. The ground above it falls inward, and everything inside, gas, ash, molten rock, explodes outward in every direction at once. There is no running from it. There is no shelter from it. It simply happens. The Toba supervolcano sits in what is now Sumatra, Indonesia. The lake you see there today, Lake Toba, that lake is the crater. It is 100 kilometers long. Just to be clear, the hole left behind is 100 kilometers long. When Toba erupted 74,000 years ago, it released 2,800 cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere. To put that in perspective, Mount St. Helens, one of the most famous eruptions in modern history, released 1 cubic kilometer. 1. Toba was nearly 3,000 times larger. It is the biggest volcanic eruption in the last 2 million years, and it happened while your ancestors were alive. The ash cloud reached the stratosphere within days. It spread across the entire planet. Scientists have found Toba ash in ice cores in Greenland, in ocean sediment off the coast of Africa, in layers of rock in India 6 centimeters thick. 6 centimeters of ash falling from the sky, across an entire subcontinent. Imagine standing outside and watching the sky turn gray, and not stopping. But here is the thing. The ash wasn't even the worst part. When that much material explodes into the upper atmosphere, it blocks the sun. Not for a day, not for a week, for years. This is called a volcanic winter. The average global temperature dropped by somewhere between 3 and 15 degrees. Plants died. Animals that ate plants died. Animals that ate those animals died. The food chain collapsed from the bottom up, quietly and completely, across the entire planet. And somewhere in the middle of all of this were us. Humans at this point had already spread out of Africa. Small groups scattered across parts of Asia, the Middle East, into Europe, completely unaware of each other, completely unaware of what was coming. None of them had any warning. One day the sky started going dark, and then it got cold, and then it stayed cold. Here is what the genetic evidence tells us. At some point around 70,000 years ago, the human population crashed. Not by 10%, not by half. Some estimates put the total surviving human population at between 1,000 and 10,000 individuals on the entire planet. To give you a sense of what that means, there are more people in a mid-sized office building today than there were humans alive on Earth at our lowest point. We were, for all practical purposes, extinct. Not quite gone, but close enough that the difference barely mattered. Scientists call this a genetic bottleneck, and the evidence for it is sitting inside every single person alive today. Humans are genetically one of the least diverse large mammals on Earth. Chimpanzees, who number in the hundreds of thousands, have more genetic variety than 8 billion humans. 8 billion people, and we are all remarkably similar, because we all descend from that tiny terrified group who made it through. We are all cousins, in a very real sense, because of what happened at Toba. So, how on earth did anyone survive this? The answer is not what you might expect. It was not the strongest, not the biggest, not the fastest or the most physically impressive. The groups that survived appear to have been the ones near coastlines, because the ocean, unlike the land, still had food: shellfish, fish, sea creatures that the ash cloud simply couldn't reach. While the rest of the world was collapsing, people on the coast kept eating, kept surviving, kept going. But it wasn't just location. It was behavior. The survivors did what humans do when things go badly wrong. They adapted. They changed their diet to whatever was still alive. They moved when they needed to move. They shared food within their groups. They kept knowledge alive. Which plants were still edible? Where the fish were? How to read the weather? How to stay warm? The knowledge passed from person to person became as important as the food itself. And here is the part that genuinely surprised researchers. There is evidence from this exact period of humans in South Africa, using tools more sophisticated than anything seen before, pressure-flaked blades, pigments, engraved patterns on stone, abstract thinking. At the moment of maximum crisis, humans appear to have gotten more creative, not less. Some researchers believe the disaster is what accelerated our cognitive development. That being pushed to the absolute edge is what forced our ancestors to become more inventive, more cooperative, more capable. The catastrophe may have made us smarter, which is either inspiring or deeply unsettling, depending on how you look at it. Slowly, over decades, over centuries, the ash settled. The sun came back, the temperature crept upward, the plants returned, and the tiny group of humans who had held on, somehow, against every odd, began to spread again. This is the part that should genuinely stop you for a second. Every human being alive today, all 8 billion of us, descends from that group. The people watching this right now, the people who built the pyramids, the people who walked on the moon, Shakespeare, Einstein, your grandparents, all of them, every single one, traces back to a few thousand people huddled near a coastline, eating shellfish and waiting for the sky to clear. We nearly didn't exist. The entire story of human civilization, every city, every invention, every war, every painting, every song ever written, nearly didn't happen because of a mountain in Sumatra that decided to have a bad day. And the fact that you are here right now is because of decisions made by people who had no concept of the future of humanity. No idea they were part of something that would one day build cities and go to space. They weren't saving the human race. They were just trying to eat enough to see tomorrow. It's worth saying that the Toba catastrophe theory is still debated. Some scientists argue the population crash had other causes. Some think it wasn't quite as severe as the genetic evidence suggests. But the bottleneck itself is real. The genetic evidence is clear. Something happened that nearly ended us, and a small group of humans made it through anyway. The thing about near-extinction events is that they leave marks, not just in the genes, in the behavior. Humans are unusual among animals in how strongly we cooperate with strangers, how willing we are to share resources with people we have never met and will never see again. Some evolutionary biologists think this is a direct result of what happened at Toba. When you are down to a few thousand people scattered across the planet, the groups that share survive. The groups that don't disappear and leave nothing behind. Cooperation wasn't a nice idea. It was the only strategy that worked. And 74,000 years later, we are still doing it. There are supervolcanoes on Earth right now that scientists monitor around the clock. Yellowstone in the United States, Campi Flegrei in Italy. Neither is expected to erupt anytime soon. But they are there. They have erupted before. And they will erupt again. The question has never been whether, only when. The difference between now and 74,000 years ago is that we can see it coming. We have satellites and seismographs and early warning systems and global food storage, and the scientific understanding to know exactly what is happening and why. Our ancestors had none of that. They had fire, and each other, and the stubborn refusal to stop existing, and that was enough. The lesson of Toba is not that humans are fragile. Clearly we are not. The lesson is that even the most fragile situations can be survived, that even when the numbers look completely impossible, 1,000 people, the whole planet, no warning, no plan, no idea what is even happening. Something in us keeps going. Not because of strength, not because of luck, because of what we do when things get as bad as they can possibly get. We find each other. We share what we have. We adapt. And we wait for the sky to clear. It always does.